Well, a few months back, we were introduced to a brand new brand in our mobile audio category, and that is, of course, Modus. Not only did they come to the table with some brand new product, they introduced some revolutionary exclusive technology that is honestly quite mind blowing. We're going to find out what this technology is, how it works, and a couple of new products that Modus is offering to our industry. This is CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM, all about Modus. And it starts now. What's going on, guys, and welcome to another CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and you are tuned in to CMA Networks, where we talk mobile electronics day in and day out. On the menu today is Modus, a brand new category of brand with some really cool technology I'm sure you've been asking questions about. Well, we're going to get to the bottom of it today. We have our special guest, industry veteran, Jason Digos, joining us. Jay, welcome back to Connected. I'm excited, but what are we going to be talking about on today's show?
Hey, Ben. It's great to be back here on Connected. Today, we're going to talk about some really cool stuff that we've got coming out. The new Apex amplifiers for automotive applications, Mezzo amplifiers for automotive and marine applications, and then our full lineup of marine speakers and subwoofers.
There's nothing, Jay, I love more than new product to talk about. It gets me excited, and I'm sure our audience will be excited to hear about it as well. But first, an opportunity for our partner, SiriusXM, to remind you why it's always a great add-on sale. And when we come back, let's get into some brand new Modus gear. I'll see you guys after the break.
Hey, Paul here with SiriusXM, and I'd like to talk to you about attachment selling and why the SiriusXM product is one of the best things to add, especially since we don't trade dollars with any other category. I could go through all of this, but let's hear what some of our dealers have to say.
It's an easy add-on that takes, 10, 15 minutes if we're running an antenna, 1 minute if we've got an adapter to plug it into the factory SiriusXM antenna, and it's extra money, so no brainer.
I present it to every customer because a lot of customers don't know what all they can do with Sirius. They don't know what all content they could have. It just makes too much sense not to sell it.
It creates a different customer loyalty and customer security when you explain to them why it's a better experience. Just gets them back in the door. And then the next car, they're already asking for it again. So it just keeps selling itself. It makes more sense.
Well, there you have it. You heard from our dealers. Just remember some of the best practices. Make sure you have one on display so you can demo it. Make sure you're taking advantage of our rewards program, because if you're not taking advantage of that, you're leaving even more money on the table. Make sure you got our POP up on display. And other than that, just make sure you're recommending it.
All right, welcome back to the show. Of course, we have our man Jason here joining us. Jay, how's it going, brother? Everything good?
Everything is great, Ben. Good to see you.
I'd say it's more than great. You guys got a lot going on. And on today's show, we're going to uncover some of this stuff. Now, spoiled little me, I got to see some of this stuff in person a couple months back at some of these trade shows. But today, we're going to break it down so people know what we're talking about. All right, lots on the menu. We're going to start with top of the line stuff, audiophile kind of stuff. I noticed during the launch a very unique style of amplifier. And when I say unique, is because I've never seen these type of materials used for amplifiers. So of course, a lot of questions came about, and that's why you're here, Jay. What we're talking about, guys, is the new Apex series amplifiers. And as the name suggests, it's at the top of the food chain. These are meant for, car audio enthusiasts, top grade amplification solutions. And talk to us a little bit about the mindset going into developing these Apex amplifiers.
So this Apex amplifier was under development for a few years with Tony Demore and Juan Rodriguez, our chief engineers. And it is the epitome of sound quality. It is a Class AB amplifier, but what's really unique is it has a high voltage Class A input section. So the audio signal coming in gets processed in a Class A operation, high voltage, boosted into the current side of the amplifier, which is Class AB. So the other unique thing, Ben, is that there are no other controls on the amplifier except a gain control. So there's no crossover, nothing like that, so that it preserves the pure audio signal going into the amplifier.
So really doing what an amplifier is supposed to do, which is simply amplify the sound that is coming in just louder, right? That's exactly what that's all about. All right.
Exactly.
Now, I mentioned earlier, when I saw these things, I was like, wait a minute, is this an amplifier? What am I looking at? The reason is what you're about to see, guys. when you see these amplifiers, you're going to ask some questions, but I'm not going to take that away. I'll let Jay present to you the new Apex amplifiers from Modus. So take it away.
Yeah, Ben, these amplifiers are so pretty. They look amazing. So the first thing that you'll notice is this clear acrylic cover, right? Now, this kind of serves a cosmetic purpose, obviously, but one of the things that you'll notice that's very different is that the heatsink for this amplifier is actually inside behind this fan cover. Now, the reason why we did that is we were able to take all of the components that get hot and we've mounted it to this aluminum block that has got a bunch of fins on it. And basically what that does, if you stretch that out, it's got a huge open area. And by doing that, we're able to concentrate that heat that those devices generate right in the center of the amplifier, and then the fan draws cool air in and pushes that cool air through that heatsink and exhausts out and goes out through the bottom of the circuit board. And on the back of the amplifier, there's this really cool thing that we've kind of called a Mount Fuji. It's basically a vortex. So as that amplifier pushes the cool air in, the fan comes in and it pushes the cool air in, this little vortex accelerates that air and disperses it evenly through the bottom of the amplifier panel and then helps keep the rest of the amplifier cool. Now, the advantage to this and why we did it is because we know that we're not really pushing the limits of what our amplifier components can do in a traditional convection cooled amplifier, right? Because we're limited. If we mount those devices on the normal heatsink of like a traditional amplifier, that heatsink gets hot and at some point we'll have to shut that device down or because the heatsink gets too hot. We can't touch it. So by putting everything internal, we've kept everyone's hands away from it and we're forcing the air in through that heatsink, which means we can push that device a lot harder, much closer to its limit, produce a lot of power, and still have really amazing sound quality. So it's a really unique design, and we call this peak cool.
First of all, Jay, I don't know if anybody could explain that as smoothly as you did. So thank you for that explanation. You've answered my questions. What a unique design. And you know what? I know this is about sound, but can I say that these are really cool looking amps and look really different from every single other, amp out there? I mean, I think that deserves a little bit of merit. So kudos to the design on that.
Yeah, they are really, really nice to look at and they sound absolutely amazing.
Okay, so having said that, we're talking about the sound, we're talking about the system build. Can you walk us through a little bit about the breakout of the different models that are available for this lineup?
Sure. So we've got two models, an AXA4, which is a 4-channel, and it's 100 watts by 4 RMS at 4 ohms. And then I've got a mono amplifier, both in the same chassis size. So you guys that are doing some custom installs, you don't have to worry about different chassis sizes, but that mono amplifier is a 750 watt RMS at 2 ohms. So there are two models in the line, both Class AB with the Class A front end input. So both very, very good sound quality. And I might add that the mono amp is a full range amp. So there's some unique possibilities there with some front stage applications. So you guys are really talented in designing audio systems. So there's a lot of different applications where you could use these amplifiers.
All right, Jay. So those were the new top of the line, I guess, audiophile style Apex amplifiers with that really cool cooling technology. This next one, you guys might have heard a lot about this because you guys made a claim. I'm going to repeat what the claim is. The claim is that somehow Modus amplifiers can achieve, listen to this, 500% efficiency. Now, let's be clear. We're about to talk about another series of amplifiers. This series is called the Mezo series of amplifiers. And these are kind of dual purpose because they work for a car, but they're also built for the marine environment. Right. So before we talk about the amps, we have to take a second to address that claim. I get so many messages and questions about this. I have the man. Jay, take a second and walk us through this preact technology that is involved with these Mezo amplifiers.
So the patented preact technology, Ben, is really elegant in the sense that it utilizes an onboard lithium-ion cell to supply current to the power amplifier side. So what that means is that when a really big bass note hits, instead of drawing current from the vehicle, it draws it from its own internal power source, thereby minimizing the outside current that has to come into the amplifier to drive that audio signal.
All right, hold up. Let's get this right. You're saying that your amplifier can be more efficient because you've integrated a lithium ion power bank, right, essentially inside the amplifier. So let's think about this for a second. The first thing I noticed, Jay, I'm going to point you out, the gauge of wire on some of these higher power amplifiers did not make sense to me. So explain this so that everybody understands. Why do we not have a 0 gauge power input on an amplifier that's pushing out 1300 watts, for example?
Right, because the current requirement on a 1300 watt amplifier tells you that you've got to have, a 4 gauge or even a 2 gauge wire, heavy gauge wire, to supply the current that's necessary, right? So in a Mezzo amplifier, because we're storing that energy on board, essentially the vehicle just becomes a battery charger, right? So we require less current to come in to keep that lithium ion power cell charged. And when that musical demand hits, instead of the amplifier drawing from the vehicle, it draws it from that lithium ion cell.
So that explains the question. Why does the amplifier not have thicker gauge? Because really, it only has the gauge wire required to charge the battery, not to power the sound that's going out into your speakers. Okay, that's one part. The next part I have the question for is, how does the amplifier know when to do what? Like, you've got music coming through, voltage up and down, amperage, power, all these elements, cooling. Like, what is going on here? What's controlling this?
That's a great question, Ben. So in the amplifier, in this part of the preact system, everything is controlled by an onboard microprocessor. Now, that was actually custom coded by our engineers. So they wrote the code for the microprocessor to monitor the voltage coming in, the audio signal going out. It even has another technology that's patented called ActEQ, which analyzes the actual audio signal coming into the amplifier, and it compares it to what's going out. So if the output is clipped, the microprocessor looks at that and says, hey, I don't want you to clip. I'm going to turn the gain down just a little bit. So it doesn't compress it, it just turns it down a little bit to minimize that clipping. So there's a lot of really cool technology in the amplifier, and it's all controlled by an onboard microprocessor.
This technology is mind-blowing. And where I'm kind of connecting the dots now, Jay, is as you're describing that, is the application of this. So I'm asking myself, why would Modus go through all this trouble to create an amplifier that draws such minimal current yet has incredible output? I think I know the answer, but I think I'd rather hear from you. Why don't you tell us?
Well, I mean, if we look at modern vehicles today, especially EVs, right? Because there's just a lot of them out on the road. One thing that we can always do in aftermarket audio is make a better sound system. Now, modern cars are very limited now in electrical current that is available, right? So there's a lot of limitations on what we can do to upgrade those. Now, traditionally, you would have added a battery or even some kind of power inverter if, let's say, the electrical system in a vehicle is a really high voltage. Well, with our amplifier, we can adapt to these modern vehicles, not draw a lot of current because it's not available in the car. And also, the other thing too cool, Ben, is that our preact technology allows us to operate at a really high voltage range between 9 and 58 volts.
Aha.
So that Cybertruck that you saw, it's a 48 volt platform. And we have no extra batteries, no separate power inverter. It's running off of the Tesla 48 volt platform. And I've got 4 amplifiers in there at about a 6,000 watt system, drawing less than 20 amps of current total at full volume.
And it is like crazy, because if you guys have seen this Tesla, it's got a ridiculous enclosure that goes right into the compartment where you're sitting, and it's like overwhelming the amount of bass that comes through. Okay, man, I could stay on this all day, Jay, but I want to kind of round this up, and I want we're gonna put up some images of these new Mezo amps. But at the end of the day, you mentioned EV. Let's talk about the other side, marine applications. Like, everybody knows, man, we're limited to the type of batteries that we have, right, on our boats. So, I mean, this is a perfect application for that, isn't it?
Yeah, marine applications, especially because, a marine motor doesn't charge until it's running at a very high RPM. And you're limited out there. And if you're out in the water as the voltage goes down, I mean, traditional amplifiers would probably shut off because they're consuming so much current. The other thing too is in a marine application, there's a lot of partying going on in boats, so the volume is definitely a lot higher. And then instead of turning the volume down as the party continues, typically the volume gets turned up. So that's where Act EQ comes into play to minimize that clipping that's happening or any distortion. And with pre-act, the current averaging, we're able to output a lot more power while minimizing the current draw. That's what's available on the boat. So it really works well in the marine applications as well.
No, I like that. I like the fact that you're doing less, you're doing more with less. So therefore, you could probably pack it with more gear because you're not drawing as much as a traditional or legacy amplifier would, based on how everything's being configured. Okay,
Yeah,
last
and the
piece.
other thing.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. Hey,
No,
one
no,
more thing in
absolutely.
a boat
Yeah.
is, typically when we're installing electronics in a boat, we're having to run multiple power and ground wire. So with Modus amplifiers, with the Mezzo amps, we've minimized that because now you don't have to run multiple runs of power and ground, at 4 or even
Oh,
bigger gauge wire. The maximum you would need to run on a Mezzo amp is 8 gauge. So we've minimized the amount of wire gauge, wire cost, right? So,
less
it's
copper. Less
it
copper.
has copper,
Yeah.
yep. So I mean, weight and things like that. So I mean, it's just a way more efficient way of doing things because of this technology.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna let you break out, obviously, the different models that are available and kind of what the power ratings are.
Cool. Yeah. So Mezzo amplifiers are available in 4-channel, 6-channel, and 8-channel, and those are all rated at 125 watts RMS at 4 ohms. And then the mono amplifier is a 1300 watt RMS mono amplifier that's stable to 2 ohms. So lots of different applications and configurations. And the other thing too is that the marine application amplifiers also have an onboard DSP. So if we're tuning the boat and making sure it sounds right, we have an onboard DSP that is run by a PC application.
All right. Obviously, we had to take a little bit more time to talk about all this cool amplifier technology and features, but let's not discount that this is going to be a full line, guys. So next up, we're talking about, again, in the Apex series, but this time marine speakers. Jay, I see you have one there. Talk us through these cool new speakers that obviously will match up great with the amplifiers.
Yeah, Ben, we've got a whole lineup of marine speakers starting with the Apex line. So these are available in 6.5, 7.7, and 8.8 inch. So lots of different applications. As you can see by this one here, it does have onboard RGB LEDs. And the other thing that's really cool is it lights the tweeter ring and also these little light bars here. So cosmetically, they look really cool. And then what I'm showing you here is the classic grill. These are also available in black. And then we have another grill that's a more sport grill. So the cool thing is when you purchase the speakers, when you purchase the classic, it'll come with both colors. So you'll have the black and the white grill. We have a 1-inch soft dome tweeter that has really nice high output, which is really important in a marine application. Of course, polycone, IP66 rated, Deutsch connectors. The other thing too that's really impressive with these that is really different from other speakers is that as I rotate this, you can see how slim this depth is on the grill. It doesn't stick out a lot. So when it's mounted on the panel in a boat, it doesn't stick out a lot, doesn't look really weird. So it's just a lot thinner on the front end as well. The other thing too, look, no mounting screws. The grill actually cam locks in and it twists. So the stainless steel hardware is all underneath there, and then you insert the grill on top and then you twist it and it locks into place. So we thought about that as far as a cosmetic, but also for ease of install. And then also, if you feel like changing the grills out to the different color, it makes it really easy to do so.
Well, like everything I've seen so far from Modus, lots of thought, lots of design cues, lots of unique kind of little things that make it a little bit different. So that was the Apex series of marine speakers. Our last product, don't think we forgot about the bass, because obviously if we're talking about putting up a big system in a boat, we want to have some bass because that's what it's about. That and the lights. Of course, I can't discount the lights. But let's talk about these are in the Mezo series now, a new subwoofer developed just for the marine environment. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Ben, we've got a whole lineup of Mezzo marine subwoofers. Now, of course, this is going in a marine application on a boat, so they have to be infinite baffle. So they mount right up to any panel up in the boat where you're separating the front and back wave. And these are available in 10 and 12-inch applications for infinite baffle. Now, of course, we've got the onboard RGB LEDs, just like you see in the Apex speakers. The other thing, too, that's really cool is that the stainless steel hardware is mounted behind the grill. So the grill is separate and it uses the same cam lock feature that we have in our other speakers, and that just rotates and locks in place so it hides all of the mounting screws. Now, this is available as an option, so you get to pick which grill matches your speakers. This is a classic grill in black, and then I also have the sport grill in black and white as options. These do have 6-pin Deutsch connectors. They are IP66 rated, and the 10-inch version handles 350 watts RMS of power, and the 12-inch version also handles 350 watts RMS of power. So depending on your application and amplifier, we've got all the different sizes and applications available for your boat.
I'd like to take this opportunity and thank my guest today, Jason Digos, for joining us and schooling us on not only some of the Modus products, but some of the really interesting patented technology that they have come to market with. Now, if you want more information to find out details, maybe you have more questions on some of this unique technology, head on over to their official website found at modusglobal.com. All right, so here's my takeaway. It's not every day that our industry gets the treat, I will say, of having some new and very interesting technology being introduced. Not only is it new, not only is it a fresh idea, but this applies to the applications that we are seeing. What do I mean? Well, take for instance electric vehicles. We're talking about ranges of going up to 48-volt systems. These new amplifiers from Modus can handle that. Not only can it handle the input side, but the power draw is so minimum that even the gauge of the wire doesn't need to be super heavy. Look no further than their demo vehicle in the Cybertruck. Crazy output, minimal draw. Not only that, let's take a look at the design elements. Let's take a look at the Apex amplifiers that were presented on today's show. So elegant, so different, with again unique cooling technology. What does this all mean? Well, if this is a glimpse into the initiative or the space that Modus wants to take within our industry, I certainly think they've come out, they've made a point, and they've got our attention. So I, for one, I'm extremely excited to see what else is coming down the pipe. That's it for this CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.